Hello and welcome. Hey, Kaycee, what's going on?
Hey, Melissa, good to be here with you.
Yes, and I'm sure many of you know Kaycee Parker. She's my regular co-host in here, talking about all things diabetes, faith, and just trying to stay strong every day. So today we're going to switch roles a little bit. I'm real excited about this idea. So you came to me recently because I've done some guest like Q&As on your blog articles that you
Right.
feature on your own site. And you said, "Hey, I would really love to talk about your switch over to a pump, which is a big deal."
It is.
And it's so funny. I think I'm still in shock over the whole thing, so I haven't really been talking as much as maybe I could, but I'm just organically sharing, online or whatever. So I was like, well, let's switch roles today, and this would be a good way for you to feature this conversation to your audience as well. So I'm going to hand the mic over to you, and you are going to ask me some questions.
I would love to. Yeah, this is something that I thought about when you started sharing about your transition over to a pump online, and I thought, oh my goodness, people in both of our audiences
Mm,
probably have questions about there are so many different ways to treat diabetes. And so are you on shots? Are you on a pump? Do you wear a CGM? Do you not? Do you prick your
mhm.
fingers? I mean, there's all these things, right? And how
Yes.
do you
Mhm.
decide? And what prompts you to go from one to the other? And what do you find better and why? And all the questions.
Yes.
And so I
Yes.
thought I need to take advantage of this opportunity with Melissa and just talk about this while it's really fresh in her mind.
Perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. So remind me a little bit, and your audience too, a little bit about your diagnosis. When were you diagnosed and what treatment did you start at that point?
Yeah, diagnosed in 1982. I was 14, so I'm coming up this spring will be 43 years. Pretty old school back in those days, right? We
Yeah.
had we had insulin vials and we had syringes. And I was even actually, that was a little prolonged. I know of people that were diagnosed earlier than that. I mean, I've met them that actually, where the needles were not disposable. They had to be what, boiled? I think
Hmm.
boiled, right?
Yeah.
So there was quite a process. Um, and my insulin vials, I remember it was a clear and cloudy,
Yep.
and I think it was NPH and regular. Those were the
Yes.
two. And this is the kicker because it was pork and or beef. And I don't remember if I was on one or the other. I don't really remember exactly, but I do remember that was the source that they were getting the insulin from back in those days. Yeah.
Cloudy and clear. Oh my
And
goodness.
Claire.
That brings
Yes.
back memories.
Yes, I know, because you're
I
you're
was
just
in
right behind me.
92.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we've come a
So,
long way.
oh my goodness, yes. Oh my word. So, how long were you on multiple daily injections to manage type 1?
Well, up until 6 weeks ago, 42 years. I know.
42 years on
I
multiple daily
know.
injections, right?
And
The things we
people,
do to live.
I know, right? And people to this day, I mean, some know that I've switched over. And of course, it really takes somebody in the diabetes community to understand what it means. If you ask the average person, they have no idea how we do it or why we choose different ways. It's just a different language for those of us. But I've had many people, even people I've coached, that have said, "Wow, you're still MDI," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm still doing this." And I guess my theory was, and it might be jumping ahead to what you're going to ask me. It's just I've always been, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
It always worked for me,
Yeah.
and so I just kept doing what worked. Yeah,
Yeah.
basically. Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So your experience on MDI, you were on a long acting insulin and
Right.
short acting when you would eat. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
Yep.
That's exactly right. And when I think back to the cloudy and clear days, so that's what we're going
Mhm.
to call it. Maybe that's what
Yeah.
we'll call the episode title, the
Cloudy and
cloudy and
clear.
clear days.
Yeah.
I think I used to roll the NPH in my
Yes.
hands
Yes.
because it was cloudy.
Yes.
And I remember my morning dose. had part of the cloudy, and then it had a little bit of the clear.
Yes.
And it's so ironic because I knew little about what any of that meant, which is really sad. That's another thing I lacked back in those days was really understanding what all this was doing, how it was operating in my body. And so what that does is that it really takes us out of our own care. Little did I know. It's just a good example of we just work with what we have, and that includes the education,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's why I think the community is so important, and the things that you're doing with your podcast or with your coaching, and getting together with someone who gets it the day to day is just huge. You can learn so much.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So over the 42 years of MDI, was there ever a point before now that you considered a different treatment option?
Not until I'm going to say, again, I've been exposed to it. I have
Sure.
friends. My husband, as many people here know, this is kind of a funny story because he's been type 1 for, gosh, he was diagnosed when he was 20. He's now, I'm throwing his age out there. He's almost 59. So he's about 38, 39 years with type 1. So he's
Okay.
just behind me with that, with the years. But when I met him, he was on a pump.
Oh,
And I was, of course, MDI. So he got used to kind of what I was doing. And then he was doing a lot of surf trips in those days. I mean, he's always done surf trips, but he realized the ease and the flexibility of not having something attached to you. He
yeah,
was actually using the tubed Medtronic pump. I don't remember the model it was back. It
sure.
was probably 7, 8 years ago. And he decided to take it off. He went on a surf trip because he left his pump at home and he's like, I'm going to do MDI. He followed suit with what I was doing. So for the past 6 years, I would say at least, we've been both on the same insulin therapy. And it's worked for him as well. I think that's the beauty too, especially when you have good insurance. We are so lucky.
Oh,
I thank
that's
God
huge.
every day. Our insurance is just, it pays. It pays for really what our choices are. Very, very blessed. We don't take that for granted at all.
Yeah,
So we have that ability to choose depending on our lifestyle, which is really what we're doing right now. Yeah.
that's amazing. And so is
Hmm.
he continuing on MDI?
Funny story.
Okay.
So I just went over. So I just switched over on, and I wrote my date down. What was the date? October 21st was my first day. So we're recording this November. What's today? The 14th.
14.
Actually, this is World Diabetes Day.
It is. Yeah. Yeah.
We're recording this on, and this won't air until December. But no matter, what day and date that you're listening to this is all applicable. So right now gosh, I'm not even a month in, am I? I'm
No,
coming up
quite.
on maybe 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So he just recently decided to hop back over to MDI.
Okay.
And it's the same reason that got him on MDI in the first place, because he is in and out of the water so much.
Oh,
It wasn't working with him. So again,
yeah.
it's so nice. And this is another good example because I went on a 30-day trial is what Omnipod 5. So that's the system I'm using and using right now. And which is really cool because it's like, okay, let's, try it on for size, test it
Mhm.
out. I'm assuming a lot of pump companies do that as well. That kind of that introductory,
Mhm.
to commit to something long term if it's not something that really fits with you and your lifestyle. So it's working. It's working for me so far. Knock on wood.
That's so good.
Hmm.
That's so good. Okay. So that's so interesting, the dynamic of you and your husband, and, different options based on lifestyle, that's beautiful, because when you and I
Hmm.
were both diagnosed, we were not given options.
No,
There weren't any. The
no, there was
option
no
was use
choice.
a needle and get the insulin into your body. Like
Hmm.
that was the choice, right?
That was the choice. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, the rest we were literally figuring out on our own. And of
Yeah.
course, we didn't have CGMs in those days either.
No.
We were pricking our finger, and I had points of time. Again, I was a teenager, and I guess it was about education. My family did not have a lot of money, so no insurance. So my
Mhm.
mom and dad scrapped just to get me insulin and all of
Oh,
that. So a glucometer wasn't even considered. I mean, I think they were just becoming available.
mhm.
So again, I wasn't used to testing, so I continued to just not test. So again,
Wow.
it's that familiarity, and yeah, it's obviously we did have the urine stick, so that was part of the
Mhm.
testing.
Yeah.
But I don't remember doing it very often. I was just on
Uh,
my, this is what I took, this is what I ate. I
yeah.
know, living
Yeah.
blindly, really. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I get it. So, what made you think after 4 decades of multiple daily inject, what started that thought process of, I think I might want to explore an insulin pump?
Yeah, there's a couple reasons for this. And I think God plays a big role in this. I think people and circumstances kind of come into your life. And I think, I mean, our heart and our space has to be open for this. And we went to a conference, my husband and I, because we live in Florida, and Touched by Type 1 conference in Orlando when was that? Mid-September.
Mm,
And I had it in my head before we left because I've always been interested in the tubeless pump.
yeah.
And this is part of the barriers that I've kind of created in my own mind about what wearing a pump would be all about. And I'm very transparent about that. My biggest resistance was having something else attached to me.
Sure.
And I'm sure many of us think about that. I mean, this is kind of across the board. I mean, it's not fun. It's not
Right.
something that it's what
Yeah.
it is. It's just
Yeah.
part of what we have to do it. But and I was just more aware. I have a few clients on the Omnipod 5, so it's definitely I'm exposed to, their therapy, their settings and stuff like that. So I found out ahead of time that a representative was going to be at the conference as one of the vendors. So I was excited to get to be in front of the equipment and to actually see it. And the young man that was actually one of the reps, and I don't remember his name, very, very nice. He obviously, also lives with type 1.
Okay.
So I think it was just perfect to see that. And he was a lot like us. He was active. He was young. He showed us where he wore his pod.
Mhm.
So we walked away from that booth that day. So they were giving us just samples of pods. So basically, there was nothing in them, but it was just, okay,
Mhm.
slap it on wherever you think you're going to be comfortable wearing this. Just test it out. What a great
So
idea.
interesting.
Yeah. So, and this is interesting because David, my husband, because he doesn't care, literally, we're standing there at the booth. He slaps it on right there. He put it on his arm. Okay, we're good to go. He wore it for a couple days, just like I had to think about it some more. Because even though
Mhm.
I was inspired by who I just met and the system and I believed in it, I still wasn't quite ready. I'm like,
Sure.
okay, well, I'm going to take this sample pod home and I'm just
Mhm.
going to keep thinking about it. I'm
Mhm.
not quite ready to commit. So that's exactly what I did. So that was a Saturday. We went home. I think it was Monday. I want to say it was Monday morning. Is And this is something I'm still doing when I'm trying to find a location for my pod.
Yeah.
it's and I'm realizing that I can't overthink it because when it's all said and done, it really doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the piece I've come with it. It really doesn't matter. I've been lucky again. My skin, I guess, is sensitive. Wherever I put it, I'm assuming it's working. Again, still kind of early on to really understand, the pluses and minuses of different locations. But
Mhm.
I wore it on the inside of my stomach, or not the inside of my stomach, but on the inside of my waist, and no problems. Slept on it. No, it was like, okay, I think I could do this. So that's when I just said, okay, let's do it. So I
Yeah.
called the company, and they're pretty quick to get back with you. They're eager to get you on board.
I
So
bet. Yeah.
yeah,
They're
they're like,
excited.
okay, let's do this. So
Yeah.
they immediately connected us with a pump trainer
Mhm.
right here locally.
Mhm. Well, that's nice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Did
Yep.
you look, obviously you said you were looking for something tubeless, and that
Yeah.
really is the tubeless option.
That
So
is the only, yes, right
yeah.
now. Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't really any other research that you went into. That was really the most important thing for you.
It really was. Yeah. Yeah. That was the number one marker. It's a great question because I think the average person, or maybe even newly diagnosed, if they're working with their endocrinologist or their care team, they're showing them different styles and types and
Right.
pros and cons to this system versus that system. I just went straight for that same one. So I didn't shop.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah.
You knew what was important to you. And that's
Hmm.
huge because different ones have different features and
Hmm.
whatnot. And it's a matter of what is best suited for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I
So
agree.
you mentioned something about working with your endocrinologist. At what point did you bring in endocrinology, your healthcare team? How did that work? How did they play a role in all this?
This is an interesting question as well, because I saw her for the first time because I've just reconnected with a new practice here locally. And when I saw her, I was still MDI. She was shocked as well, but very supportive is what I was doing. I mean, my numbers and, my history kind of speak for, whatever I was doing was working. So she wasn't there to kind of talk me into anything. So I actually contacted their office after meeting with Omnipod. And to this day, I haven't really had a direct conversation with them. So everything has been kind of over the portal. I know. So I will honestly say, I think I switched to a pump with strictly my own education, my own research of just, the product itself and the pump trainer when I met with her.
Wow.
And Omnipod, I will say, they provide a lot of resources. They send you through, and I'm assuming all pump companies, again, I can only speak for the one that I've had, relationship with right so far, is, there's an online video you watch, a tutorials, lots of things, again, to get you ready for that
Mhm.
session with your pump trainer.
Okay.
But it is funny. My doctor at this point, she's really kind of out of the loop. Um, she did get she got my basal. She already knew my settings. So she did work with the trainer to set what my initial settings were going to be on the pump.
That was my next question
Yeah. Yeah,
because you're
that did
going
happen.
from a long acting plus a short acting to
Hmm.
you've got basal and bolus and it's all short acting. And
Yes.
so that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
That's still something I'm working through.
Yeah.
Because I will say, and I will always just speak highly of MDI. The way, and another thing a lot of people have been asking is, okay, so why now? And this is something you brought up as well. And I think for any of us, diabetes is diabetes. There is no pump that's going to take away your issues. There is no magic solution. It really is about our mindset and our thinking about what we're currently doing. And I've always, and for years now, I've been very confident about my MDI life and
Mhm.
the N pen that I use. That's a Medtronic product. And Traceba, I'm throwing out all the different ones that I'm using. I love all these products. So the Traceba long acting, I recommend that so much. I've had many clients I've worked with just recently with my advice and my recommendation have gone to their doctor and switched over to Traceba from
Mm.
their former. That's how strongly I believe in this
Yeah.
in this basal insulin.
Mhm.
And I've always been on Novolog. So that's stayed the same. So that's what I'm using
Okay,
as
that's what's in your pump.
that's what's in my pump. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But and I think it really was because, and then on top, and you talk about hormonally, these last couple years have been a little shaky with my resistance, hormone levels, some gut health issues that I've talked publicly here about. All those things, believe it or not, ladies, really impact our body's ability not only to just operate normally, functionally, all the other systems, but it really impacts our insulin efficiency. So I'm now dialed in with that. I'm back dialed in with my MDI. So I think that's the perfect time
Yeah.
to take on another.
Yes.
I think it's scary. I've heard of no judgment, just observation. women I've even spoken with that say, okay, well, MDI is not working for me. I'm going to switch to a pump, or pump is not working for me. I'm going to switch to an MDI. But I really think there's a framework there that really needs to be addressed. It really is your relationship with what you are doing, whatever system it is. I don't think there's a magic system. It's really your relationship with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So what is, during this transition time that you've had almost 4 weeks now, what was the biggest hurdle that you faced?
The basal.
Mm,
I still am getting used to the fact that Tresiba was such a beautiful background that held
mhm.
me steady. And I I didn't have to think as much about what my average was throughout the day. I just knew that when, whether it's stress, food, exercise, lack of exercise, those are all the things, or most of the things that impact what we need for bolus insulin. And
Right.
suddenly I had a system that was thinking for me, telling
Yeah.
me that, no, this is the drip that you're going to get.
Mhm.
Um, but a lot of that goes with not only just trusting the system, and the system has to get to know you. So I had to just slow down, just remember this is a totally different thing that my body is going through. It's
Mhm.
not getting what it used to get or how it used to get it. So I had to surrender to that. And that first week was a little sticky. I was waking up higher, and I was like, this makes no sense. So we had to tweak the settings and then wait a few more days.
Mhm.
And I guess the system, according to what I'm learning, is that it truly does need to. It's an algorithm that really has to get used to really what you need when you need it. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that's under normal circumstances. So I think
Mhm.
basically for me, it's getting used to the fact that there's really no background insulin for my body to kind of tap into.
Mhm.
It's all the control of the pump. And I feel like I've been taken out of that decision. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So you're wearing a Dexcom CGM
Hmm.
and the Omnipod 5, and
Hmm.
you're using them operating in a closed loop.
Yes. And you bring up a good term, and this is actually a good time to talk about it because I know we've talked about closed loop here with you. I know.
Yes. Yes.
I think it might
Yes.
have been our last um, episode with you or it might have been two before, but we were talking about that control.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because I haven't heard the term used closed loop within Omnipod. That's not really a term they use, but I'm assuming it really is the same kind of system, right? So
So in other
closed
words,
loop.
your Omnipod can adjust and give you a little extra or cut back to help you stay in range. That's what's happening,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. So
Okay.
so that's okay. So that is the same theory. Yeah,
Mhm.
this is perfect that we were able to bring that on. And then this system has automated, which is what that is. It's automatically doing what it
Gotcha.
thinks you need, depending on, you still have to give it the information. You still got to let it know, what you're doing, whether it's activity mode or what you're
Right.
eating. Obviously, I'm still keying in carb counts, and you can adjust.
Mhm.
It does let you go up or down depending on, which I like that idea. Let's say I'm at 120. I just had lunch. I'm going to work out in another hour.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to tell the pod. I'm going to speak to the pod and say, I'm going to end up burning up a little bit of that. So I don't
Mhm.
want as much insulin on board when it comes time to move and to
Mhm.
exercise. So I like that. I mean, there's areas to override based on
Yes.
just common
Yes.
practical sense, right? Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right. Yes, absolutely. So with a tandem pump, they call it Control IQ.
Mm.
And then I'm not sure what a Medtronic, I don't know what they call it, but
Automated
yes.
mode. I think that's
Is
what
it automated? I mean,
yeah,
that's what it is, right?
automated. Mm-hmm.
What it is.
Yeah.
That's a good name for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So you have been on a pump now almost 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
What has been the biggest aha or surprise? Like, oh, this is good. We talked about your biggest challenge. What
Mm-hmm.
has been a good thing?
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about freedom. I think,
Mm.
obviously when you're MDI, you have to carry your insulin with you.
Sure.
And the in pen I had was great. It's a smart pen, so it gave me the insulin on board that had an app attached to it too. So it's real similar. But the plus is that I don't have to carry an insulin pen around with me anymore.
Yeah.
Um, and heat sensitive, so it's still warm here in Florida. So, and it's kind
Yep.
of funny, you're getting ready to go out the door for a few hours, and you're like, oh, that's right, I don't need to grab my pen. I don't need to put it in my purse. So things like that make it a lot freer. And the controller itself, so I'm holding it right now. The
Mhm.
controller itself, it doesn't have to be with you, which I think is interesting too.
Yeah.
You can leave it home if you're not going to be in need of insulin, basically. So you only need the controller
Oh,
when you need to dose or to adjust. But the system is always ongoing, because the system's attached to you. And of course, Dexcom is connected with this pod, if that makes sense. But
yes.
yeah, those are just little tweaks that I'm realizing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think this is a long-term change for you? Or do
I'm
you know at
giving,
this point?
I think at this point, I'm going to continue. If you had asked me that maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know what? I'm not sure if I want to keep doing this. And it's nice to have that leeway where, knowing that I'm not committed to any sort of a contract with the pump system and all of that. Really nice to be able to make that choice. Um, but I'm curious just to kind of ride it a little bit longer. I'm seeing more pros to what I'm doing with this than I am cons. So the pros are definitely outweighing the cons. And I think the only con is, I'll be honest, I'm changing it out every 3 days. I've got to really make sure I'm close by and having it and I haven't traveled yet with this system. So there's still some variables that I haven't encountered, that
Yep.
could obviously, and that's going to take some more planning, just like I know it will. Yeah, those are just some things that I have to anticipate between now and when it happens. But I
Yeah.
don't. I am taking it one day at a time. But I wake up positive and very grateful for what it's giving me and the freedom that it does offer. So,
Hmm.
mhm,
Yeah, that's amazing that I think when you go into something like this, especially after having been in the same treatment for 42 years, right?
mhm,
It's going to be different. And the open mind and like, I'm going to give this the time that it needs to
mm,
figure it out and then make a decision, right? Like, you're not held to this, but
right,
you deserve to make the best decision long term for yourself and like truly
absolutely,
give it the time that it needs for you to
yeah.
know what's the best choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's serving. And, I'm feeling confident too about, my husband, he just switched back over just a couple days ago, um,
Mhm.
as we're speaking. And it was funny. He got up that morning. He's like, okay, should I? Well, actually, I think he took it off that night. I forget what time of day it was
Mhm.
because it actually just timed out. So, his pod was done. It was time to change it. And he's
Oh.
like, well, I think I'm going to go back. So we were like,
Mhm.
okay, what about Tracebo, right? So what do we do with that? So I think he did end up getting a little bit of Tracebo on board just to kind of make up that difference. But those are, those are things we have to kind of work it out. But what's really neat is I don't think if and when, just like his transition was really seamless, he had no issues switching over. I have the same confidence that if and when I even just want to take a pump break,
Yes, that's a thing.
absolutely. Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, whether that's a physical, I want to get away from this, or if it's just, I don't know. I'm not real sure what or if I'll have that real nation, but gosh, it's nice to know that you can do that, Still have
Yeah.
all the other things on hand, which helps. Obviously, we have a supply of pens and those other insulins that we use. So, yeah,
Yes.
just a lot of gratitude at how easy that switch over really could be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Choices are so good.
Mm,
So let's say that someone listening to your podcast here is considering a change from something to another, right? What
mhm.
would you recommend? What would be your best advice to them in this transitional moment?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think to get with somebody, maybe like myself or somebody else in the community that's done it recently. I know there's a few ladies online that they're both right in the process of switching over and starting a pump. And that was just pure coincidence. I heard about that as I was going through my transition. I think it's real important. Our community is great. I think there's no better advice than those living with it. And just hearing what their day to day is like, and I think specifically if you're kind of sold on one product, one type of pump, really talking with people who are wearing it. And I have um, a, a new friend here in St. Augustine where I live, and she's on the Omnipod 5. So I think that made a world of difference. Just meeting her, she just loves to help. And what better way can you help kind of go through this transition, but with alongside somebody that's willing to, give you some advice or tips. And I've already kind of asked her some things. And, really just getting with a company that I think all of them are so supportive with the training. They want you to succeed with this and just trust that can be there and it is available to you. And if you're lucky, like I was, to get an amazing pump trainer who's just attainable, knowledgeable, and just supportive. And I think the number one thing too is knowing that and again, assuming your situation with insurance and the relationship with whatever product that you pick, pump therapy that you pick, that your choices remain open. I think we tend to not take those steps or make those what seem like sharp turns, um, because we're just afraid. So there's a lot of fear based on that. But we don't know until we try, right?
Exactly.
Take that
Exactly.
step. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there's no harm in researching and in talking with someone from
Oh,
a pump
yeah.
company and
Yeah.
talking with someone within the diabetes community, wearing it, living with it,
Hmm.
doing it day to day to just figure out, and maybe you'll find out during that research and those conversations that I don't think this is it. And maybe
Hmm.
you'll find out
Hmm.
it is.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of the time that we live in, is that you have choices and there are
Hmm.
multiple routes to take, and that's amazing.
Yes. Right.
It didn't
Right.
used to be that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a lot of other influences, I think, that can kind of push us one way or another. I think where even peer pressure or doctor pressure as to, what other people may think is best for you. I think it's a really good way to really get in tune and maybe take this time, like you say, to really identify, even if it's just writing a list down. Okay, why is this important now? The pros and cons, what's
Yeah.
going to outweigh it? What am I willing to commit to? Or, what's a non-negotiable? And weigh the pros and cons. And I think ultimately, we want to live with freedom and trust in what we're doing every day because we can't take a day off from this. And we all know
No,
that.
no.
So, yeah.
I think diabetes is something that weighs on your mind enough
Hmm.
that the extra worry of, is this going to work? That's just
Hmm.
anxiety
That's true.
waiting to happen.
That's true. Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
if we feel comfortable in the treatment that we're choosing, that's gold.
Yeah, yeah, you bring up a good point because I was at that sticky point within a week or so starting where I was just having these numbers that made no sense. Things that I used to do, eat, move. Um, my morning, my mornings were starting, I was starting off at like 150 waking up.
Mm.
It just wasn't making sense based on what I was doing. So, but I was just told to stick with it. Just give it time, give it time, give it time, and then adjusting a few settings. Again, you work with your trainer or your doctor about what that next step should be. So it is amazing. A little tweaks here and there because in most cases it doesn't take much.
Right.
So tweak, wait some more, tweak, wait some
Sense.
more, and just let it just let it be there for you, which is it's definitely proving that way for myself. Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you
Hmm.
for sharing.
You are
Thanks for
welcome.
letting me hijack your podcast and
I
interview
love it. Yes, yeah, this is good stuff. We got to do this type of format more often. It's more
you.
good stuff. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being on your podcast.
Mhm. Always. I love having you in here. It's good
Yeah,
stuff.
no, it's
Yeah.
always good to chat with you.
Yeah. Well, we are, is that all you want to know about my MDI to pump?
That's all I've got, but if you've got more to share, I'm all ears.
No. I think, I think it was interesting. I think back to the day that I did it. We were at a hospital setting, my husband and I. So we met in a meeting room in a local hospital. That's where we met our trainer. And, because we went through it at the same time. This was even though he's been on a pump, this was a new pump for him. So obviously he needed
Right.
the training. We both wanted to start from kind of step one. And we were just getting ready to just get it all dialed up, put the insulin in the gosh, I still don't even know all the different parts to it. But anyway, the portal.
Mhm.
Um, and I got a little teary-eyed, and she recognized it because she knew this was a big deal.
Yeah.
She was very sensitive to that. She did a really good job at being compassionate, but she was still really direct with her treatment, I think, or not her treatment, but her direction,
Mhm.
which kind of kept me on track.
Mhm.
Yeah, I really appreciate how she handled it and handled me, I guess. But it
Yeah.
was emotional. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that absolutely can be emotional. It's a big
Mm-hmm.
decision. You're making a health decision.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge anytime you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost a separation from what always worked, and just letting go, knowing that another type of insulin therapy can do just as well as I was doing, calling the shots, basically. Ha, gosh,
Hmm.
there's a
Yeah.
pun. Calling the shots is
Yeah.
literally, yeah,
Yeah.
that is really really what it was. Yeah, just letting go and trusting.
Yes.
Hmm.
That's so hard sometimes.
Hmm.
But yes.
Yes, we think we got it all. We
Yeah. Yes.
and we don't generally have it all. We definitely
No.
need help.
No.
So yeah, I'm just real thankful for the community too. It's been amazing. So
Good.
nice.
That's huge.
Yeah. So, and this is a great topic to continue to build on. And I welcome if you're listening here today and maybe you are wondering, maybe you're on MDI and want to switch to a pump. I've had some ladies just recently come to me that are on a pump. They're interested in MDI. They're calling me the MDI expert. I'm like, okay, I'll raise my hand to that. I do consider myself an expert at MDI,
Of course.
but yeah, just humbly. But I'm gracious for, just really grateful for that. For them to look to me and ask this question. But I would love to feature that on here as well. All these decisions they weigh heavy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the number one thing, is just to recognize how important a decision is, but not get weighed down with, any sort of, like you say, anxiety or stress around it, because it doesn't have to be that way. And it does start with our thinking and our mindset, and knowing that there's so much help out there that, and with God, anything
Yes.
is possible, right?
Absolutely.
Mm,
Peace. That's what we need. Peace, not anxiety.
yes. No.
Yes.
Okay. Well, reach out to Kaycee and I. And of course, you can find Kaycee Parker over on Devotions on Diabetes with her book. And I'm sure we'll be back in here in the new year.
Yeah.
2025, here we come. I'm excited. Another great year ahead. And yeah, reach out to us online, shoot us a message. And I hope my transparency and my honesty about switching over was helpful to whoever was listening today. And I'll see you back in here next week. Bye for now.